Welcome to the Goal Podcast, news and commentary from Gun Owners Action League, your leading voice for the Massachusetts gun owner.
I'm Garrett, across the table from Jeffrey. How's it going?
Busy. You had a busy weekend. It's already been a long week of work, and we're recording on Tuesday.
You're like, what a week today has been.
But you and I both, on Saturday, attended the Nolan Howard's event.
Yeah,
National
that was really cool.
African American Gun Association, their range day meetup and shoot. That was up at On Target Firearms, an indoor range in Drake-it.
That was the first time I'd ever been to that place.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool indoor range.
Yeah, cool. They had set up. Gun store outside, a pretty decent gun store. And then, what is it, eight or 10 lanes for public use, 8 or 10 lanes for private use?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And
but
then,
not a bad little indoor range facility. And interestingly, like, you can kind of shoot anything in there.
Apparently. Yeah, I wasn't noticing a whole lot of range restrictions on.
How long do you think the range was? 20 yards, 25?
Yeah, I'd go like 25 feet. It was pretty good size indoor range.
There's a guy shooting a bolt action
308
6.5 Creedmoor.
6.5 Creed. Which, we were talking about it afterward. Just like, I get, if you live in the urban area or if you live in the area where there's not a lot of outdoor ranges, I guess you do what you can do, right?
Yeah.
If that means shooting 6.5 Creed on an indoor pistol range, I guess that's what you do. Not everywhere has great big open ranges where you can stretch that stuff out.
Yeah, but great attendance. A bunch of people brought a bunch of different firearms to shoot.
Really cool. I got to try a couple things.
Yeah, I got to shoot a couple Mac 90.
Yeah.
So I got to tickle the AK bit.
It's just something about a sheet metal gun.
There is something about 7.62, especially in that platform and the way it's set up that, I don't know, it's just cool.
Yeah, it is cool. So Nolan is he was on here, what was it, two episodes ago?
I think.
He's the president of the Boston or the Massachusetts chapter of National African American Gun Association. Yeah, really cool. Really cool meeting him in person because he was on the episode, remotely. Good to see him in person. I met him, his sidekick, Antonio, also a good guy. Well, sidekick, his partner in crime over there. Good people. The other folks that came down for the range day were very personable, very cool.
Yeah, it was a great time.
It was a good time. Good time. And then you...
And Sunday I was up at Harvard Sportsman's Club helping with one of Aaron's NRA basic pistol classes. So I did the legal section.
That's always fun.
Well, that was, I don't mind teaching the material, but it's so hard, like in the back of your head, knowing how much everything's going to change.
Yeah.
Or
you want to go every sentence and say, well, for now anyway.
For now.
Yeah.
So I did caveat by, at the end saying that, hey, there's a lot of legislation that is in progress right now to completely change everything I just told you. And it's your responsibility as a citizen to be aware of what the laws are and when the laws change, because of course the state doesn't notify you.
No, of course not.
And it's the plan's about as poorly thought out as possible. So yeah, there's a big part of it in the back of your head. You're going, everything I'm saying right now might not be true in
6 months,
in whenever,
in a couple of months. Who the hell knows? Yeah.
Yeah, because H.4139, it's on the move again.
Yeah, so it is on the move again, as you say. So Monday, as we record this, it was just yesterday, February 26th, the State House of Representatives held themselves an informal session with, a handful of the usual suspects in attendance. They try not to come to work if they don't have to.
Well, they obviously want, as little discussion as possible.
Right. So during this informal session, they did hold a vote to not support the language passed in H.2584 by the Senate. So the Senate said, okay, these are our amendments to the House bill, send them back. The House said, no, this language is not good, so we're going to not support.
Well, the House didn't say it. The handful of Politburo members decided on behalf of the House that they weren't going to accept it.
In any case, it's not surprising. We know that Day and Mariano want the worst possible anti-rights language that they can get, and they don't think that the Senate bill goes far enough. What they did do, however, during this informal session is manage to name their conference committee members. So first up on the list,
Chairman Mao, Michael Day, since this is his, abortion of a bill.
Yep.
So he is on the committee. Representative Gonzalez of Springfield is on the committee. And then Representative Joseph McKenna from Webster,
who's a friend of ours. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Joe's solid.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
I kind of feel bad for him. I think he's the
well, any Republican on this committee is going to be the minority vote, right? I mean, we know that.
I wish him the best in everything he's trying to do, but I have a feeling that
he can inject some sanity into
he's gonna have a very frustrating time,
or at least raise his hand at the right times and say, "Listen, that's not that's actually stupid and illegal. You can't do." So anyway, I don't know. Who knows? Going forward, the state Senate may. They don't have to impanel a committee, but they may. We all know that they will. They're going to select their people for the committee, possibly during their session, which is coming up on the 29th.
Thursday the 29th?
Thursday the 29th, which will be the day before this podcast releases. Possibly during that meeting, they will announce their committee members. Thereafter, as we know, the conference committee is going to negotiate in secret. No input from the public. No input from the other members of the legislature. They don't even allow public spectators to listen in on deliberations.
No, this is an entirely secretive process.
So, gotta love it. Representative government, folks. This is how democracy is supposed to work, right? So they have until the session ends on July the 31st to come up with their proposed quote-unquote compromise bill language, which will go back to the chambers for a straight up or down vote. No debate, no amendments, no talk. Just a vote. Even if the bill is drastically changed, they have no accountability to the other members. They could release a bill from conference that says nothing like what either the House bill or the Senate bill says.
Yeah.
And it'll go back to the chambers for a straight up vote. Once it passes that vote, it goes directly to the governor's desk. So that's the legislative process here in Massachusetts, folks.
So if essentially, in this, they use the term compromise, and that term, I think, has gotten so lost in what that means. They're essentially negotiating amongst themselves of how bad they're going to break the law against the rest of us.
How much they think they can get away with. Yeah, basically is what it boils down to. How terrible can we make life for law-abiding people?
That's the part of the conversation I would love to be a fly on the wall for, is their discussions around what is going to, how do we structure this to either not get sued or get sued. And truthfully, I don't even think they care if they get sued.
No, they have an unlimited war chest. They have unlimited supply of taxpayer money with which to fight this garbage.
And then it goes to the First Circuit anyway.
Yeah, which is a rubber stamp for anything they say.
So it's a little bit of SCOTUS or bust.
The Supreme Judicial Court here in Massachusetts. Yeah, it's we all kind of know how this is going to play out.
Yeah. The turd sandwich is on the platter and it's coming.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that there's no remedy. That doesn't mean there's no recourse. And that doesn't mean that any number of things could change.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you pull your head into the shell and wait for the bad stuff to come down. You can still make your voice heard.
As much as we've speculated and tried to read through, as you like to say, read the tea leaves.
Yeah.
Whatever the final bill comes out is what they want. So somewhere between the Senate bill and the House bill, or a combination of both, which who knows?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. But that's the current state of things. You can still get in touch with your representatives and your legislators in general, and make your feelings known.
Yeah, just because it's not public doesn't mean you can't tell them what you think.
Yeah.
So call, email, write, continue the pressure, keep it up, keep doing the good work. Now's the time to really dig in.
As soon as there are any updates, we'll be sure and let everybody know.
Cargill v. Garland is going to oral arguments this week.
Speaking of the courts.
Yep. So oral arguments are scheduled to begin on Wednesday, February 28th. So we're recording on Tuesday, the 27th. That'll be tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. So if you're listening to it, you won't be able to listen to it live, but you can go on the SCOTUS website and listen to the oral arguments. But this is the case that is challenging the ATF's redefinition of machine gun to encompass bump stocks.
Yes.
So
this one's been in the pipeline for a little while now.
Cargill and the new Civil Liberties Alliance made the argument that the ATF, as a federal law enforcement agency under the executive branch, does not have the legal authority to create new criminal statute.
Who knew that the ATF as a regulatory agency couldn't just invent laws by pulling them out of their rear ends?
So Mark Chenoweth, so he's the president and chief legal officer of NCLA, the new Civil Liberties Alliance. His quote in the article I was reading today is, if a federal agency can issue a rule that makes people felons for owning a device the agency had repeatedly and consistently approved as lawful for more than a decade, then everyone's liberty is truly in jeopardy, which is absolutely true.
Absolutely. It is unequivocally true. It is, they spend 10 years saying, yep, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. And then the political winds change and suddenly now possession is a
we
felony.
decided that we've been wrong this whole time.
Yeah, that is not how law is supposed to work.
Arguments will be delivered by former Texas Solicitor General Jonathan Mitchell on behalf of Cargill,
Yep.
on behalf of the government, the tyranny. A name you might recognize, Brian H. Fletcher. So he's the Principal Deputy Solicitor General. He's going to be arguing on behalf of the government.
Why do I know this name?
He also testified on behalf of the government as an amicus curiae in support of the respondents in NYSRPA v. Bruin.
Yep.
So he testified kind of on New York and the government's behalf.
Of course he did.
In the Bruin case, which they lost, and he's now going to be doing the arguments in this case. So
now I remember. Yeah.
I'm hoping for a repeat performance of his losing. Now, as we saw with NYSRPA v. Bruin, the effects can have reaches out beyond just the specifics of the case. So there may be, depending on how this goes, I think it speaks to Maura Healey's edict in 2016. That's now trying to be retroactively codified into law.
Yep. By this nonsense that the House and
by this current legislation.
Yep.
So this will be a case that'll be important to watch for, to see how the Supreme Court rules, because it also will impact things like Chevron deference and have a little bit of long-reaching consequences.
Right. Yeah. It's consequences beyond just this one case. Important to watch. On good news side, though, we've got Louisiana is set up to become the 28th state to enact constitutional carry. The legislation passed through their state Senate on a 28-10 vote.
Yep, pretty strong support.
That's a pretty strong, yeah. So they previously passed similar legislation in 2021, but Bill Edwards, governor, right, managed to sustain a veto through their kind of backdoor trickery and eliminated a potential veto override on behalf of the legislature. So that was vetoed in 2021. Enter 2023, Louisiana voters elect a new governor, Jeff Landry, who'd promised to sign such a bill if it reached his desk. And sure enough.
So this session, SB 1, their Senate bill number 1.
Number 1. Passes the Senate on February 22nd, just last week. With the Republican supermajority in the House, it's a pretty safe bet, we think, that this will be through the legislature sooner rather than later. So it's looking like we're going to be 28 states.
28 states deep, and I think South Carolina's well on their way.
They're on their way
to becoming number 29. God. So that's more than half of the country.
Gotta love it.
By states.
And here we are in Massachusetts.
Going the exact opposite direction.
States, right? Going the exact opposite direction.
As hard as it is to imagine that as bad as Massachusetts is, and California and New Jersey, and I mean, we hyper focus on the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Broad strokes, the Second Amendment in the country is not doing bad. It's small,
the little
intense
freaking
pockets,
enclaves that are throwing temper tantrums after the Broom decision came down.
So it's all the more important that people stick with it, stay in the fight.
Yep.
Join, get your friends to join. pile on.
Overall, yeah, the Second Amendment's doing pretty good.
But you know, this question comes up a lot, and I was hoping that you might be able to expand on it a little bit. I hear some people say that, you know, constitutional carry is essentially states just nullifying all gun laws.
No, of course not. So constitutional carry is basically permitless carry, right? They say that as a function of the fact that you have a Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, we're not going to pass a law that says that you have to get a license or a permit or something in order to exercise that right. It's true for all of your other enumerated rights. I don't have to have a license to vote or to, you know, well, ideally to exercise free speech or be free from search and seizure, et cetera. I don't have to have licenses, you know, for free speech.
You don't have to pay the government for permission to publish a blog, to write something, to
or submit myself to a background check, or, you know, take a class or any of that stuff.
Yeah. So constitutional carry really just says from the state level, whatever the federal law is, that's good with us. That's fine.
That's basically what it boils down to. And then, you know, it doesn't mean that they don't have gun laws.
But then the other claim that tends to get thrown around is that constitutional carry makes those states remarkably less safe.
That's baloney.
There's been no evidence that I can find anywhere.
No, me neither.
That says it really has any effect at all. Because even the states that people like to say, well, you know, this red state has higher gun violence. Like, no, it's really kind of the blue city within the red state.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
So these hyper concentrated pockets of violent activity aren't really being affected by the state saying that we're not going to jam everybody else up. So my argument would be, if it doesn't change anything, err on the side of the individual civil right.
Yeah. It's just right to self-defense. It should,
from a legal standpoint. And then the practical standpoint is, like, if you're going to have very violent people and you're going to insist on keeping hyper violent people in public, then I think it becomes even more important for the people to be able to defend themselves.
Exactly so. But you can't come in here with rationality and clear thinking and expect that people are going to be. You can't do that. Oh, yeah. NRA news. The NRA corruption trial has concluded as expected last week on February the 23rd. I mean, there was no question about how this was going to come out.
The ruling was not a surprise to anybody.
No. Last week on February the 23rd, New York City jury found that former Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre used NRA funds to pay for his personal lifestyle. As an upshot of all of this stuff, he's got to repay the NRA $4.3 million in restitution. The actual number was like 5 something, but I guess they found that he'd already repaid like $1 million. How did they even figure this out? I don't know.
I think they're just making numbers up.
As we know, LaPierre resigned from the NRA in January. Also, former NRA Treasurer Wilson Woody Phillips was also ordered to pay $2 million in damages to the NRA.
Back to the NRA, I guess.
Yes, they're paying that money back to the NRA.
Well, you know, it seems to be the pattern of New York to just start suing the hell out of everyone that they don't like.
Pretty much,
for exorbitant amounts of money. And they're declaring economic warfare against the unselected, the unclean and unchosen.
the disfavored.
But the verdict essentially ends a 7-week civil trial that was brought on by Letitia James, New York's Attorney General. In addition to the monetary damages against LaPierre and Phillips, the jury, which was only 6 people.
Yep, civil case.
I thought, I've always heard 12, so I'm like,
12 angry men? No, civil cases.
6-person jury found that under this whole umbrella, the NRA failed to protect its assets and failed to protect whistleblowers.
Yeah.
So the NRA was the defendant and the victim?
Yeah, they're a defendant in the idea that they're finding all this misconduct by the NRA, but they're also saying that they're a victim because LaPierre and Phillips et al. Took money from the NRA and basically trying to say they embezzled money without actually saying that word to fund their personal lifestyles. So the way that it's kind of being spun, depending on who you talk to, it's either a defeat for the NRA or it's a victory for the NRA, depending on who you talk to. there's a little bit of spin happening. I got to be honest. Listen, I'm an NRA fan, but there's a little bit of spin happening here. It's like, oh, Tisha James got all this money for the NRA. It's great.
Well,
hey, you know, all right,
well,
okay.
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, I guess.
That's a little bit of spin doctrine going on there.
Although this part of the whole story kind of bugged me was that, so after the verdict, this is over, James released a statement where she's asking the judge to now install 2 overseers in NRA leadership to report to the court and really report to her on how the NRA is being run and how their money's being spent.
Yeah.
So essentially forcing by law anti-Second Amendment people being appointed into.
Yeah. So Letitia James is essentially trying to have her cronies, installed at the upper levels of the NRA.
So they can supervise, of course.
Right. Naturally. Well, so the case is over, but it's not really over. The second phase of this is going to happen in a few months' time. So what James wants is, like you said, for these people to be installed in the NRA leadership to kind of, observe and report, but really, they're political officers like the, Zampoli are going to be the people who are, making sure that the NRA is run the way
is like some old school Russian tactics. You need to have a political officer in your organization. Seriously.
Exactly. Yes. So the jury found that most of the transactions that were brought to trial were acceptable, right? They were okay.
They were fine.
And they did not recommend that the NRA as an organization had to pay restitution to anybody. So on the, the NRA is a win side of things, that's kind of the, that's the basis that people that are saying that the NRA won are using for the rationale.
For Letitia James, who called the NRA a terrorist organization.
She is not a friend of the NRA. Let's just make this abundantly clear. The fact that the New York Attorney General said, we're going to sue Wayne LaPierre and Woody Phillips and make them pay restitution to the NRA because that's fair.
Yeah, I'd say
don't take that to mean that that she's fighting on behalf of the NRA.
Yeah, I think it's, I think you can call it a loss for the NRA in the sense that they have been tied up for a very long time. It has been very expensive to deal with this whole issue.
Yeah.
I think they achieved their goal of sowing dissent amongst the Second Amendment community.
Oh, no doubt about that. Yeah, they've been very effective at that.
On the plus side, and where I consider this a win, is they didn't take down the NRA, which was their entire goal from the beginning.
Yeah, the first thing that she did was try to have the NRA dissolve, which is okay, no.
And as a byproduct, we've seen organizations that are, as the NRA is sucking in all the asteroids.
I like to say that
huge amount of gravity.
Right. The NRA is the Jupiter sucking up all the asteroids so that the smaller inner planets can do the actual work.
The smaller organizations that are, flexible and nimble and have been just, really doing fantastic work. So
the NRA is everybody's boogeyman. So ramifications, as of this recording, it's still kind of too early to see what the long-term ramifications are going to be. If this judge sides with the Attorney General and says, okay, we're going to install overseers and make them, make the NRA rewrite their bylaws and corporate governance structure and all that stuff, it could be, it could mean that pretty much all the leadership of the NRA gets wiped out. No idea. It could mean that. On the other side of the coin, if this judge does not side with the AG and does not install these people and, says that the case is what the case is and everything's just kind of going on the way they're going on, I think that the NRA has made it pretty clear that they don't plan on making any course corrections. They're not.
I don't think there's anything in the mix of drastic changes.
Yeah. Hopefully the board can step up and make some positive change internally.
If there was an opportunity for a renaissance and
absolutely. I hope that you are right. I hope that you're right, and I hope that the NRA seizes on this opportunity. So the second phase of the trial, because of Judge Cohen's schedule, second phase of this trial is not likely to happen until the summertime. So we'll see.
We'll see in sunnier, warmer weather.
So there's things going on in the what is it, the credit card world.
Yeah. So on the federal level, so this is a piece of legislation that just came out. And this is one where I would strongly encourage people to call their federal representatives and senators to possibly support this.
Oh, but, yeah.
Last Friday, February 23rd, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik from New York, along with Congressman Richard Hudson and Andy Barr from North Carolina and Kentucky, respectively, introduced the Protecting Privacy in Purchases Act. And this would bar banks and credit card companies from creating unique merchant category codes for firearms retailers, as well as potentially firearms and ammunition themselves.
All right, let me derail you for a second. Elise Stefanik, she's the one that's being considered as a vice president pick for Trump this time around.
Who knows? Who knows?
You pay attention to that?
Well, what someone says today,
we're still in the first quarter.
You know, hey, it seems to me like, you know, the person who's in the preferred position today might not be tomorrow and might be back in the mix next week.
Yeah,
so,
who knows? She was at CPAC over the weekend. Anyway,
that's one of those, like,
derail you.
When it's announced, it's announced.
Yeah, right. We'll see when it's official. Anyway.
But we've talked about this before. A couple years ago, credit card companies were trying to do all this stuff.
Yes. Yeah, the MCC stuff from a couple years ago.
So looking back a little bit, FinCEN, which is the U.S. Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
That's creepy.
Admitted in writing to U.S. Senator Tim Scott that they were violating citizens' Fourth Amendment rights by, without a warrant, collecting credit card purchase histories from banks and credit card companies on citizens who had purchased firearms or ammunition in the days surrounding January 6th.
All without a warrant.
Mm-hmm. And they also were caught and admitted to requesting data from like peer-to-peer payment systems like Zelle, Cash App, Venmo on transactions that could also be potentially tied into firearms, and, you know, like searching keywords in the memos like Trump and MAGA and you know, people buying religious stuff, Bibles and
nothing.
Part of that whole
nothing says domestic terrorist like somebody buying a Bible, you know? Yeah, I get it.
So knowing that they were doing that, this legislation was filed and on the federal level would bar that kind of behavior. So there's a lot of states that have already dived into the legislation on this. Some states have already put in legislation that says in order for banks and financial institutions and everything to do business in their state, they cannot force firearms retailers to use specific merchant category codes that would distinguish them from the categories that they're currently in, which are, you know, sporting goods, general merchandise retailers.
Yeah, so you can't, a credit card company wouldn't be able to go, or a bank wouldn't be able to go, you know, you must use this, you know, specific code to identify yourself as a gun seller.
You know, Walmart has the general merchandise code, but Bob's Bait and Tackle that sells ammo,
he's got
to have a separate
goods. Code. And then, if somebody else was like a gun store, you would have to. Yeah.
And likewise, saying that, like, all right, Walmart, you know, the Walmarts that might still sell firearms,
I think they're
creating separate codes so that they can essentially just look up and search who bought firearms, when, where, how much did you spend, and what your finances are.
I say it's none of your goddamn business.
Some states require these firearm-specific merchant category codes, so it's a little bit of
California.
California.
So if there's a civil rights argument, it's a pretty safe bet that California is going to be on the wrong side of it.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
But you know, this would be a national, you know, federal legislation that would go over all the states' heads. And the question would be, you know, first of all, it's like, why would this matter to the Treasury of all people? And you might even venture to argue, it's like, well, why does it matter if they have a specific merchant category code? Because, you know, if you go to the FFL and buy the gun, they're doing a 4473. It's reported to the ATF anyway.
I say that's beside the point. But anyway, yeah.
Because it's very, very easy for banks and financial institutions and cards and payment systems to set themselves up to automatically decline certain merchant category codes.
Yeah.
So like if you have a company gas card for like a company vehicle, it's probably structured in such a way that it will approve purchases for fuel, but you couldn't go buy general merchandise with it. You can't go in and buy your coffee and
can't use your company gas card to go to the strip club.
Exactly. Like it just applies for that purchase for fuel. So having those companies do that would allow a company under, maybe a little bit of public outcry, a JP Morgan or a Wells or a Chase or a Citi to say, well, we're not going to allow our customers to use our products to purchase those things anymore.
Yeah. The morality police, right? They say this is a disfavored action, and so we're going to structure things to make it easy for people to deny those things to you.
I think the theme for this episode is the financial warfare. Against civil rights.
It's like it's faceted, right? It's multifaceted. They really do come in from all angles. They're
trying to sue the organizations out of existence. Mm-hmm. They're trying to, and even Massachusetts states have always tried to put in higher fees, licensing fees.
Yep, try to price people out.
1,000% sales taxes.
Insurance requirements. You try to price people out of gun ownership. You try to outright ban gun ownership. You try to make it so disfavored that it's impossible to run a gun business, right? And now stuff like this with the financial sector. It's a massive coordinated attack.
Which I think absolutely shows that it's much more along the lines of a class warfare. There's the upper echelon of people, and I don't like using the E word. I know they like to call themselves the elite. I think they do that on purpose to make themselves reinforce to you that they're better than you or somehow smarter or more
the elite,
or whatever. Yeah, this is to not allow the average everyday person to stand up to the collective mob.
To exercise their rights, heaven forbid.
So they know, the Supreme Court keeps ruling that they can't confiscate the firearms, and they can't just arbitrarily tell you can't have it. So their next avenue is to go attack your ability to afford your rights.
Yeah, it's about turning off the taps. Yeah, so amidst all of this doom and gloom, came across this one. A pro-rights ruling out of the Ninth Circuit? What? Can that be possible?
Are you sure?
Well, it can be possible, kinda. California, like most other crummy states, including Massachusetts, passed laws after the Bruin case came down, right? They're temper tantrum laws. In California's case, it was AB 2571. Had a bunch of provisions on a bunch of different stuff. The one provision that's at hand here, in this case, was to impose a $25,000 fine on any, quote, firearms industry member, unquote, who advertised any, quote, firearms related product, unquote, in a manner that would be, quote, appealing to minors, close quote.
And they are using extraordinarily broad definitions to define who would be an industry member.
That is
what would be a related product, or what would be appealing to minors.
That's why I'm using those quotes in this, because those three quoted statements cover a whole lot of territory. So much, in fact, that the practical outcome of the law was basically to ban youth shooting across the state of California.
Yeah, you wouldn't be allowed to do anything.
Leagues, competitions, the California State High School Clay Target Shooting League suddenly had to shut down, or they would face, impossible fines, $25,000 on, per incident. So leagues shut down, trap, skeet, all that stuff.
And this has bigger consequence. They're trying to say you can't advertise X product to a child, but the consequences, again, that they don't understand is this affected not just youth shooting sports, but professional athletes.
Yes. Olympic hopefuls like Lola Fitzgerald, who at the time was 16 years old. She won 4 All-American clay shooting titles, plus some junior clay shooting titles. She was basically effectively banned from participating in her sport because of this stupidity.
Yeah, and I mean, that's college scholarships. Beyond potentially becoming an Olympic medalist, which is an achievement of a lifetime.
Representing your country in international sports.
Yeah, people get college scholarships for this stuff. There's serious financial benefits
So after all of this, California backed down a little bit. They amended the law so that sanctioned youth shooting sports were exempted from the requirement. But civil rights advocates kept pushing on it and filed suit against the law's remaining provisions on constitutional grounds. I mean, it sounds pretty blatantly unconstitutional to me. So fast forward in September 2023, a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit unanimously found the advertising provision to be likely unconstitutional under the First Amendment. This month, and this is what raises eyebrows, this month, the full Ninth Circuit declined to hear the case en banc, marking a pretty significant departure from the norm when it comes to gun cases. If you look at the Ninth Circuit's history, they have a long history of declining to hear cases unless it's a Second Amendment case. If it's a Second Amendment case that goes against the preferred wisdom,
the anti-gun agenda,
they accept en banc rehearing every time. Like 99% of the time, they accept the case and they reverse it every single time.
We should. I wonder if there's a way to go and filter out how many times we said,
No, there is. This is like
the 3-judge panel ruled in favor of civil rights, and then the en banc ruling came out and said no.
Yes. Yeah. Right. It happens every single time. This is actually a pretty surprising departure from that norm. Why? I don't know. Maybe they finally, somebody in the Ninth Circuit finally said, you know what, we're going to get slapped on this one because this is egregious and it's a bad case.
I think you'd have a difficult time making it a Second Amendment thing because it's not technically banning or barring the activity, but it's clearly a First Amendment issue.
A First Amendment issue, yeah.
And their definitions were so loose, so widespreading that, essentially if you owned firearms in your home and you taught your kids basic safety,
right,
that would be illegal.
Depending on how they can twist the definition, you could be a firearms industry member advertising to a kid. How boneheadedly stupid well, I say that it's boneheadedly stupid and unconstitutional and all of that stuff, but they say that it's, common sense.
Well, just
protecting our children.
The dovetailing with the Massachusetts legislation, who is trying to do the same thing. And that's why, we do talk about cases that are outside of Massachusetts because these handful of crazy states all talk to each other and collude and what are you doing? And maybe we can try this and we'll try that and see how it goes.
There's a reason that a lot of the language in these bills looks copied and pasted. This is not a conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, crazy, loon stuff. These people talk. They talk, they communicate, they negotiate, they set up strategy. They say, okay, you guys pass this bill, we're going to pass this bill, and we'll meet you in the middle.
Yeah, we'll see where the turds stick to the wall.
Absolutely conspiracy of this stuff.
But, especially for Massachusetts, the definition of firearms industry member touches basically anybody that owns a firearm.
Anybody here. Right. Yeah, and that was one of the main points that Jim had when we were talking about
And then firearm-related product is anything.
Anything. Gun printed T-shirts, guns, ammo, range bags, T-shirts, bandanas, bumper stickers. It could be anything.
But if you look at this, like doing an Eddie the Eagle safety program.
Yeah.
Youth teaching children how to hunt and fish. Mm-hmm. Outdoor summer.
How to be safe.
Outdoor summer camps.
Stop, don't touch, tell an adult. How to be safe around guns. How to hunt. How to, all of that stuff. Banned. $25,000. $25,000 fine. Mm-hmm. So the Ninth Circuit declined to rehear the case, which, like we said, is a pretty surprising departure from the norm. So the current status of that is the case is going to go back down to the district court with a set of orders to hand down an injunction against the law. It's not the whole banquet, but it's a couple of dishes, and it's not everything, but it's still a good thing. I guess we'll see what the next maneuver is going to be. So end of the month, this episode is going to release on March the 1st?
March 1st. Friday, March 1st. Yeah, we're already getting into March. Which means April's around the corner, which means spring turkey season's coming up.
Turkey season's coming.
If you're not buying the ammo now, it is not going to get cheaper, and it's not going to get more available between now and the end of April.
Yeah. You're right. For this episode, though, we got a drill of the month.
We do. Well, we had a drill of the month from last month.
Yes, which was a little bit late because of all the brouhaha. But that video is posted on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, got it up. The video's up for people who like to get the visual for the drill. My best run for the casino drill was 17.32 seconds.
7.32.
I mean, I only ran it 3 times.
But that drop one.
That 17 includes a 1 second penalty, and it wasn't like an egregious miss, but it's a miss.
It was a little bit south. It's not like
you can look at the video and see how bad I missed the target.
At the complete opposite end of the spectrum, though, you went and looked up the dude that did the world record for the casino.
Oh my god! So the world. So this puts it into perspective, because I don't think I'm a bad shot by any stretch.
Not at all.
The world record that I can find is 9.04 seconds clean.
Jesus.
Sub 10-second run. So that's draw
21 shots,
21 rounds with 2 magazine changes in under 10 seconds.
That's insane.
And I would like to point out the individual who shot this drill is wearing a sweatshirt. Is wearing a sweatshirt from On-Site Firearms Training. So my buddy Ben DeWalt.
Oh, yep. Shout out to Ben DeWalt.
The guy who has the record is wearing his sweatshirt from his training thing. It's one of his guys.
There you go.
So yeah, if you need a plug for a good instructor, love you, Ben. I'm probably not going to get 9 seconds anytime soon, but I'll give it my best. But as bad as this is going to be for audio. My God.
That is nuts. Wow. That's crazy. 21 rounds, 2 mag changes under 10 seconds.
Yeah, and for the people who say it's a joke, that was shot in front of Tom Givens. Tom Givens signed the target.
So there's a little bit of extra stress.
So there's A, stress, but B, like that's a legit run.
Yeah.
I did not go that fast, and I missed a round. But hey, you know, it is what it is.
Hey, go that guy. He shot it once or twice.
I'm sure he hasn't. It's probably trained a lot more than I have. So
probably. There it is. That's what practice will get you. So for this month.
Rolling into taking maybe some of the skills we worked on with the casino drill and then applying it to something a little more like self-defense oriented, which is the bill drill.
Bill drill.
So bill drill is named after Bill Wilson or other bills, depending on whose version of which story.
There's like a whole backstory to this. There's like controversy surrounding this.
A little bit, like, you know, who invented the buffalo wing first, or who first came up with the cheese, like who first came up with the bill drills. There's a little bit of debate. But beyond that, on its face, it's a very, very simple drill. At 7 yards on an IDPA or an IPSC target, you draw in 6 rounds center mass. So either like the A zone or the down zero.
Yep. Depending on which target you got. Yeah. So 6 rounds.
6 rounds on a shot timer. The par time for this is actually pretty quick. I see a lot of suggestions that say you want to be able to run it in sub 2 seconds.
That's pretty quick.
Draw 6 rounds on target.
From the draw.
From the draw.
I mean, a second of that, unless you're pretty practiced, a second, that's going to be just like reacting and drawing.
It's cruising. It's a pretty quick thing.
Yeah.
And it's just far enough that you can't really just floor the throttle.
Right. No. You have to be responsible for
sometimes at 3 yards, you can just kind of like press that gun straight out.
You're almost muzzle stamping the paper.
And fudge it a little bit. Yeah. Like get that real lean forward.
But at 7 yards, you can't really do.
But at 7 yards, you have to be just a little bit careful.
The down zero is pretty good size at 7 yards, but it's not a gimme.
Yeah. So simple drill. It's 6 rounds. Run it as many times as you'd like, but since they're going to be tracking your ammunition purchases, use the ammunition efficiently. But yeah, huge keys of that is good draw stroke, getting a good grip coming out of your holster, whether you're shooting from strong side hip, concealment, whatever gun you're using. Good grip, getting those sights up and aligned, and then it's a huge focus on really, really good trigger control and recoil management. If you struggle with the drill, I would really say, like, if you're missing your first shot, like draw to first shot is the one that you're typically throwing one way or the other, then work on that part, like isolate that skill, drawing and getting the gun where you need it to be. And if it's, you're shooting and you're going too fast and your shots start spreading out, trigger control, grip.
That's my problem. I tend to if I'm rushing the trigger, they start going. Yeah.
So
then you start opening up.
As simple as the drill may be on its face and in description, there's a lot of skills that go into it. But yeah, it's essentially it's a 6-round mag dump at 7 yards center mass. So
6 rounds, you can even do it with your revolver.
Oh, that's right. I have a 5-shot revolver. Do you have a 6-shot revolver?
I do not.
Ooh. All right. I gotta get a wheel gun that'll hold 6 rounds.
Oh.
Both of mine are for revolvers. I have an SP-101.
Yeah.
357 mag.
Yeah, it's 5-shot.
That's a 5-shot, and then I have a Ruger LCRX in 38 special, and that's a 5-shot.
Also 5-shot. I wonder if the Ruger Wrangler is 6 rounds. I want to see you shoot this single action in under 2 seconds. Bob Munden could probably do it, but not me.
Well, hey, let's make a range trip this weekend.
So there it is. So you're gonna
so I'll officially run it for video. With a normal, quote unquote, normal pistol. And then I'll cut that video together and I'll try to get it up in a reasonable amount of time. I'm still working through the learning curve of how to edit that kind of stuff. So hopefully the quality gets better as we go along. And then, that's your drill of the month. So get out to the range, put some rounds down there, take a friend who hasn't shot before, teach them how to do it, teach them how to be safe. Tell them to join Goal because, we got a lot coming up, a lot going on.
Speaking of which, go to goal.org, get your Spring Fling raffle tickets, still on sale. Goal.org for those. And the 2024 Goal annual meeting has been set for Sunday, April the 7th, 2024, starting at 9 a.m. at Cyprian Keys Golf Club in Boylston, Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's the same place we've had the fashion show before. They're awesome there.
Yeah. So tickets. So there's a brunch involved. So there is tickets. Go to goal.org, get your tickets so that we know you're coming. And looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. So April the 7th, 9 o'clock, Cyprian Keys Golf Club with food. Get your tickets on goal.org.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to the Goal Podcast and check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Goal Podcast MA, on YouTube at the Goal Podcast, or on Twitter at Goal Update.
To join Goal, visit goal.org and click the Join Renew button on the top of the homepage.
If you have a topic you think we should cover, if there's something going on in your club or town, or if you have a question for the mailbag, shoot us an email at goalpodcast@goal.org.
The Goal Podcast is a production of Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Goal, its staff, or affiliates.